Hi everybody, it is Editing Audrey here because you know what? I forgot a book that I read. Hi everybody. So excited. And I mean like good weird. I like weird. I can't say the word idyllic. I'm always in the mood for some Dark Betty. Oops, get my lights back. You know I'm not usually a mood reader or like a seasonal, I'm totally a mood reader. It's gonna be a video. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse and welcome to what I read in the month of December. So here's a little bit of an oops. So if you guys watched my November part 2 wrap up, then you would have seen me talk about Lock Every Door and Blowfly. I actually read these in December, so I feel like this is a perfect reflection for where I was at the end of the year and what kind of a year I've had, which is basically mixed up and confused and distracted and all sorts of messy things. So I actually read both of these books in December. So we're just gonna start right here super quickly. Reread, loved it, fell more in love with it the second time around, I feel like I would say. I felt like I had different levels of relatability to this book. I'm a huge Riley Sager fan. If you guys have been here for a minute, you already know it. But I'm rereading all of his books in order. Reread this one, loved it. Check out my November wrap up for deep thoughts. And then I'm also on a massive reread kick of Patricia Cornwell and Blowfly. It's probably for the best that I talked about these. And this is one of those books in the series where I feel like it both answered a lot of questions and created all sorts of new questions. So I have not read anything since this one. This feels like a good enough place to put a pin in it just for this moment. And I definitely want to know what's going to happen next. So I have a couple books left to reread and then I'm going to launch into reading books I have not yet read in the series. So we're getting to that critical point, but I've just been enjoying the reread process of this. More Riley Sager to come. And now let's get into the rest of the books I read in December that I haven't told you guys about yet. Okay, so all in, I read 10 books in December. And I have to say, I had such a great reading month. I had such a great reading year. I need to put some of these down. And I am really happy with how my year ended up. And I tried to stick to some mood reading, but also kind of kick myself out of the zone and read some books I've meant to read and just kind of go with the flow. And for the most part, I would say that it worked. So I have a bit of a variety of books, which is always good. And let's just start with the first one that's sitting next to me. So I read the final revival of Opal and Nev by Donnie Walton. And I mentioned this in my weekend vlog that I did from a few weeks ago because I was reading it then. So I actually wound up doing the audiobook of this, which I saw was highly recommended, and I will echo the fact that I highly recommend you do this on audio. This book has a full cast, and I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how many people are on this audiobook, but let me shout out just a few of the main names in this book. So this book follows Opal and Nev, who were a rock duo that was huge in the 60s and early 70s, and then something happens. And in the present day is 2016 in this book, we are following a journalist who is writing a story about them and writing a story about sort of this pivotal moment in their career and a defining moment in their career. So first to shout out a few of the audiobook narrators: Janina Edwards, Bonnie Turpin, James Langdon, Andre DeShields, Dennis Boussikaris, Steve West, and Gabriel Zachman. And more and more and more people. The audiobook was absolutely stunning, you guys. I just highly, hugely recommend it. So as I said, in the present day, we are following a journalist named S. Sunny Shelton, and she is curating an oral history about her idols. And she thought she knew the entire story between them, about what happened with them, about what happened that fateful day. And of course, she starts to discover more things than she ever realized. So what we know out of the gate in this book, and this book has been comped to Daisy Jones and the Six many times, and I fully understand why. And we are getting the journalist angle of it, we are getting the interviews, but what is different about this book is that we do get the transcripts and the interviews, but we also get a first-person narration throughout the book, which I very much enjoyed. And we know out of the gate our journalist's connection to what happened. So we have page 1, and it says, "Disclosure. My father, a drummer named Jimmy Curtis, fell in love with Opal Jewel in the summer of 1970. For the duration of their affair, he was married to my mother, who in 71 got pregnant with me. Before my birth, before the world had a chance to know much about my father beyond these facts, he was beaten to death by a racist gang during the riot at Rivington Showcase. And before my mother could bury his broken body, his mistress blazed to stardom. So she is looking into what happened then, and what she finds is, of course, things that she didn't even know were part of the story. So Opal is a black punk artist in Detroit, and she is discovered by Neville Charles, who is a British singer-songwriter, and their career culminates in this showcase in New York in 1971. And everyone has a perspective, everyone has a part of the story. This book is definitely immersive and atmospheric. I feel like it perfectly captures that 60s, 70s vibes. There are some hugely dislikable characters in this book. There is such strength and power behind so many characters in this book, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, the audiobook is tremendous. I just was really, really excited about this book. And while I do think there are elements of sort of that sex and drugs and rock and roll kind of vibe to it, it is a completely different book than Daisy Jones and the Six. It's not that story. It's not the same book in any kind of a way. But if you enjoy these rock biographies, if you enjoy these books that, again, sort of weave in real pop culture, real events that were happening with the fictional world here, which also just, I felt, brought like such an authenticity. And it very much is one of those things where it's like you want to Google Opal and Neb and find their songs and find their music, but they don't exist. But Donnie Walton created such a real set of characters and circumstances and times that this feels like an absolute, like, authentic rock duo that was just crushing it back then. And I just loved so many things about this book, but it's so beautifully well written. It was definitely emotional. There were definitely really hard moments in this book. There were heartwarming moments in this book, but it just really blew me away. And I had heard so many great things about it, and I'm glad I finally read it. So highly recommend this one, big time. The next book I have is Snowblind by Ragnar Jonasson. So this is his first book in the Dark Iceland series. So this is the first of 6 books. And I read his Hidden Iceland series, which I very much enjoyed, and I was excited to get into something new with him. So in this one, we are following a rookie police detective, Ari Thor, and he lives in Reykjavik with his girlfriend, but he winds up getting a job opportunity at this very small, very isolated town in northern Iceland, and he takes it. And this book, while he is in a town filled with people, has such an incredible isolation vibe to it. We get weather impacts. We get really kind of that very small town vibe where, like, nearly everybody who lives there has some sort of historical connection. They were born and bred there. Their family is from there. Maybe they have left and returned. So Ari is sort of our ultimate outsider coming into this town and new, on the police force, wants to make a good impression. But like the first thing he hears when he gets to this town is like, nothing ever happens here. Everybody leaves their doors open. Like, there's no crime. It's totally fine. Like, it's going to be a snooze fest of a job. But on page 1, we have our woman laying in the snow, bleeding, and then we go backwards and forwards in time to try and figure out what happened. So this also gave me very similar vibes to The Appeal by Janice Hallett, which I really enjoyed. Because in this book, we also have an amateur theater group in the town, which brings together maybe sort of people who wouldn't necessarily be friends with each other, but are all connected through this theater. And that plays an important element in the storyline as well. So this book is definitely, I would say, like, on brand for Ragnar Jonasson. This was actually his debut. So we do get, it's like a slow burn, super atmospheric. And his writing style, like, it definitely has a bit of an Agatha Christie twist to it. There's a lot of characters, a lot of suspects. Everybody's a suspect, very Randy from Scream. And we get kind of like a lot about Ari, and then we get into a lot of other characters in the town, and then like we get more of Ari. And he did something very similar in his Dark Iceland series. So I feel like stylistically that's how he works, where we get sort of like one person's story, then another person's story, and see how they all weave together. But I really enjoyed this book. My phone is buzzing on my leg, and I'm really excited to continue in the series. So I definitely felt that claustrophobic vibe to things, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the mystery. I enjoyed the solve. I felt like he did a really good job with Ari. I feel like, again, whether or not he knew this was going to be a series, when he started writing it. Like, there is conclusion to this book, but there is also sort of doors, windows open for more to come. So I'm excited to see what happens next in the series, but definitely a huge fan of his, and winter is certainly the perfect time to be reading these, and I will keep reading them. Another perfect for winter book is The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. So I did a buddy read of this with Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand and Amber from Books and Beaches, and I'm so glad we did the buddy read together. It was so fun to like bounce off ideas and theories and just talk about the book and the characters. And you can ask the girls, man, did I have a lot to say about this book. But this was actually gifted to me from Christine, who said it was your favorite Jennifer McMahon, so thank you so much. I have only read 2 of hers, but I would say I definitely enjoyed this one more than The Drowning Kind, but I very much enjoyed The Drowning Kind, so all relative. And I had a great time with this book. So I didn't know too much about this going in, and that was by choice. And I felt like I was like more surprised because I really didn't have a clue what this book was about. So in this one, we are in West Hall, Vermont. We get 2 timelines. So we have 1908 and then we have present day, which she never discloses what present day is, so today. And this book opens on January 2nd, I want to say. It's like perfect for the new year, you guys. So you guys know I'm not typically a read a book in the season it was written in, but I've been doing that more this year. Just sort of, that's where my mood has taken me. So it's like where mood reads season meetings, where mood meets seasonal readings. Let's try that one again. So in present day, we are on January 2nd. In the past, we're on January 29th. So it's like perfect for this time of year. And once again, snowy, atmospheric, cold as all get out, like isolated vibes, even though we're in a full-fledged town. And I really enjoyed this book. Lots of questions, lots of questions. I have questions. So in this one, like I said, we have 1908, and Sarah Harrison Shea was found dead in the field behind her house just months after the tragic death of her daughter. And then in the present day, we have 19-year-old Ruthie, who is living at that very same farmhouse with her mom Alice and her younger sister Fawn. But when Ruthie wakes up on January 2nd, she finds that her mother is nowhere to be found. And she starts looking into what happened to her mother, and connections start to build, and she starts to learn the dark history of this town and the very farmhouse that she is living in. So I very much was creeped out, but not scared. I wasn't afraid to read this at night. There were a few difficult scenes, but not anywhere near the worst things I have read this year. But I felt like it was a safe to read at night. So when I read Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, like that freaked me out at night. This was wonderfully creepy and weird, but not scary. And I mean like good weird. I like weird, but not scary. Which is not to say that it wasn't creepy. It was definitely creepy. So I really enjoyed this. I will say for me, and this is a me thing, which has happened in multiple books, I did struggle a little bit with the 1908 timeline for probably like the first half of the book, because I felt like it was pulling me out of the current story, which I know part of the point is like when you're switching point of views or switching timelines, like you want to leave people like at a good point in one timeline and then like turn the page and you're like, oh, I want to know what happened in that timeline. But I felt like some of the 1908 timeline was a little bit too long and dragged a little bit for me. It definitely served the story. It was all very important. But as the book went on, I felt like the 1908 timeline got shorter, like the chapters were shorter and worked at a quicker clip. And I felt like they were just a little bit like draggier at the beginning. And I was like bummed when I would wind up back in that timeline at the start of the book. But ultimately, like it all served the story. I wound up actually flipping back to it at certain points to like see different connections. So that's really a me thing. I do struggle with those past timelines. I struggled with it a little bit in The Drowning Kind as well. I just want to be in the present. And I think because, you know, things are happening in the past that impact the present, but in the present, Ruthie was doing the investigation of what happened to her mom. And I love to be in investigator mode. So I think that was part of it as well, is I just wanted to be in the investigation rather than in the history. So that's just a personal thing. And like I said, I really enjoyed it holistically. And it was just, it was like chilling and creepy and fabulous. And I can't wait to read more Jennifer McMahon. I also can't wait to get my words straight, so maybe that'll be good for all of us. Okay, let's talk about all the cold and chilly books, which I feel like all of these books, most of these books have like snowy vibes to it. So I read The Widowmaker by Hannah Morrissey. I have mentioned this book in multiple other videos as well, so here she is again. I just loved it so much. So this is her second book in the Black Harbor series. So Black Harbor is the town in Wisconsin where the book takes place, and Hello Transcriber involved a police transcriber and a detective looking into a case. This book we have a photographer who winds up partnering with a different detective to work on a case. So we are following Morgan, who is our photographer. She's just moved back to Black Harbor from Chicago after some stuff, and she's not super jazzed to be back. And she's kind of very much down on her luck, and she is trying to kind of like rub some pennies together and make ends meet. And she winds up getting this job to photograph a holiday Christmas party for basically like the richest family in town, the Reynolds family. And the Reynolds family is one of those families that is shrouded in sort of secrets and mystery and tragedy. So the patriarch of their family, Clive Reynolds, disappeared 20 years ago. He was never found. The case was never solved. His wife was sort of looked at as a top suspect because she got a lot of insurance money, but nothing ever came of it. And in our present day, something happens that brings up a new lead for the Clive Reynolds case. So we have a police detective named Ryan Hudson. I always want to call him Ryan Hansen. I don't know why. Ryan Hudson. And he winds up looking into the case, which his partner, who has been killed, originally was a part of. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, but in a very good way. I really enjoy the characters in this book. This book has a lot of weight, atmosphere, grit. There is a lot of conversation about grief, about consequences. There is a lot of darkness to this book. I've said it before, she definitely reminds me of sort of a Jennifer Hillier meets Tana French. We get great police investigation. We get that great sort of entryway in with Morgan as our amateur detective who gets pulled into this story. Everyone's got secrets. There's just so many different things going on. I like how she plays with time. I like how she reveals what's going on. I like the very slow burn, but also one of the things that I enjoyed about this, which also I should mention, one of the things that was great about The Winter People is Jennifer McMahon also does a great job of like asking and answering questions and then asking new ones. So you don't have to wait to the very end of the book to get all of the reveals. We get reveals all along the way. Look at me annoyingly talking about both books at once, but we are not waiting until like the last 20 pages for everything to happen. So we constantly have, this is like such a great, I feel like, writing tip that I've heard so many times. Keep asking questions, then answer some, leave some of them open, ask new questions. And it like creates, I feel like, such a satisfying read as a reader and keeps the pages flipping. So I feel like Hannah Morrissey does a good job of that as well, where we're getting nuggets along the way and sometimes answers to questions open up new questions. And I just really enjoy her writing style. So she's very lyrical in her writing. And again, this is sort of like the Tana French element to me. It's such beautiful prose. It also just paints such a perfect picture. Like I feel like, kind of like with Jennifer Hillier as well, you can feel the darkness, you can feel the atmosphere of it. And I feel like she just, I don't know if it's because Hannah Morrissey herself like was a photographer, but like she really just captures such a beautiful picture in the book. And I just enjoyed it so, so much. So I can't wait to see what she does next. But in the meantime, if you guys haven't already read this one, I highly recommend it. It was so good. The next book I actually saved to read for Christmas, and I did, and it's The Christmas Murder Game by Alexandra Benedict. So this is 12 clues, 12 keys, 12 days of Christmas, but how many will die before 12th night? So this is like a little, and then there were none, except we have a group of cousins who are at the family house playing a little bit of a dark and messed up Christmas game. So I wholly thought this was going to be sort of a cozy mystery, and there are cozy vibes to it, but it's actually way more messed up than I thought it was going to be, and I loved it. I feel like that's one of the great things too, when you don't read too much about a book and are pleasantly surprised when things go dark. I'm always in the mood for some Dark Betty. So in this one, we have our main character, Lily. So 20 years ago, her mom died at Endgame House, which is the family house. And Lily has not been back since. And she has a lot of complicated feelings about her family and wants no part of this. But she winds up getting a letter from her aunt, Lillian, who was her mom's sister. And she's like, you have to come this year for the Christmas game because A, the stakes are really high. Whoever wins the game, which is this twisted family game, which usually ends in presents, But this year, the winner wins the deed to Endgame House. But she tells Lily that the truth of what actually happened to her mother will be revealed as well. And it's like, it's a carrot hung before Lily that she can't avoid, refuse, stop being tempted by. She's got to go. So she goes. She is reunited with her cousins. Complicated relationships, complicated family stuff going on here. We have a family tree. We have a map of Endgame House. And we get snow, isolation, cold, desperation. It's so well done. I really, really enjoyed this book. And you get to play along with them because you get to see all of the clues. You get to try and figure out what's what. But also the author has put in stuff for the reader. So she has anagrams for the 12 Days of Christmas. She has the names of her favorite Christmas country house mysteries, like for you to find. So did I do well on that? No. But did I have a fun time trying to? Yes. So it was just a really fun book. And like I said, it was darker than I expected it to be, which of course made it that much better for me. And I thought it was great. And there is a maze in this book, which also is like part of the house, which coincidentally, the book I read actually right before it, The Family Game, also has an isolated family mansion with a maze. So not reading a lot about books and randomly picking them up and then finding connections between them was such great fun. So The Family Game, this is one of those books where I feel like lots of people were talking about it. This is the one where I said a lot of people said it sounded like that movie Ready or Not, which I didn't know what the movie was. I have since figured out what the movie is. I haven't watched it, but my plan is to watch it. So stay tuned for that. Not that it has anything to do with this. Like, they're not related in the sense of like book to movie, but there's a similar vibe to it. But let's talk about the book first. Okay, so The Family Game, Catherine Steadman. This is like a crazy town kind of a book in all the best ways. And this one actually takes place from Thanksgiving to Christmas, which I didn't know the first time I talked about this. And it actually starts like in New York City, and there's just such great capturing that atmosphere of Fifth Avenue and the windows at Saks and Rockefeller Center and the skating rink. And I thought she did such a great job of just, like, as soon as she started talking about it, I could just picture it perfectly. I've been there, done that so many times. I used to live in the city, and I feel like she just completely captured the city so well. So our main character, Harriet, is newly engaged to Edward Holbeck, who is the heir to an extremely powerful American family. So Harriet is British. She actually met Edward over in the UK, and she winds up coming to New York to live with him because they were going to get married. So she's a little bit of sort of like the fish out of water in some ways. She is a writer. She has a book that has taken off, and she is now going to marry into this very wealthy family. So we get like such rich people behaving badly, such insane money, such ridiculous privilege. And Harriet is just sort of in awe of it all and surprised by it all. And the Edward she knows, who she met over in London, was not sort of part of this world. And when she gets introduced to all of this family and all this lavish extravagance, it's a complete kind of culture shock for her. So she winds up going to a family dinner to meet everybody. And her father-in-law to be is an extremely intimidating man, as one could imagine. And he asks her for a little bit of private time, and they go in to meet in his study, and he winds up giving her a tape of a book that he's written, and he wants her to listen to it, and he wants her expert opinion, and he wants sort of like her advice on it. And when she starts to listen to the tape, she realizes it sounds more like a murder confession than fiction, and she has to decide what she's going to do with this information. And she can't figure out if this is like him messing with her. Is this all some twisted family game? What is she marrying into? What does she not know about this family? Secrets, lies, all of it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And it says, ready or not, here they come. I really, really enjoyed this. So after I did the buddy read with Amber and Sarah, Amber was actually reading this as well. And I was like, I am going to blow up your polo to talk about this. And we had some great conversations about this book too. It's like, I've really been enjoying just this banter about books lately. And this was another book where I had so many crazy cakes theories of what was going to happen. And I was like, oh, this is going to be this, that, and the other thing. I wasn't right. I wasn't right. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. It wasn't perfect. It was pretty close to perfect, but it was very compulsive. It definitely was page turny. It definitely was like, I don't even know what is around the next corner, but I am ready to find out. So great, great fun. Again, a perfect time of year to read this book, but honestly, any time of year would be great to read this book. So I need to read me some more Catherine Steadman, but I had such a great time with it. And I will say, I feel like part of what elevated this for me, Harriet is a writer. She is working on her second book during this, so there is that thread of the writing life in here, which I very much enjoyed, and I really liked her as a character. And I just love these messed up rich families. These people are nuts. People are nuts. Hi guys, it is Editing Audrey here because I realized that I 1000% forgot to talk about The Personal Assistant by Kimberly Bell. I did this on audiobook. It was not in my physical books I read pile, and my mushy brain just completely missed this book, which I don't even know how I missed this book because it was so freaking good. So we get 3 POVs in this book, which means 3 audiobook narrators. So we have Chelsea Stevens, Chris Andrew Sayula, I hope I'm saying that right, and Megan Tussing. The audiobook narration on this was fantastic, you guys. And this book was such great fun. I definitely feel like this is a book you want to go into on the darker side of things. And I did to a degree, and I'm really glad that I did. So the opening of this is sort of the core of the book, where we have a woman named Alex. She is super famous Instagrammer, like mommy blogger. She went viral. You will definitely, I feel like, see some winks to somebody in real life who went viral and had some missteps. So she blew up as unapologetically Alex, and she is just beloved. And on the night she hits 1 million subscribers on Instagram, she and her assistant AC break out the tequila, and they like, I wrote this in my review, it was like 1 tequila, 2 tequila, 3 tequila floor. That is how their night went. And Alex wakes up the next morning very, very hungover, definitely low-key blacked out from the night before, and to so much hate mail on her account because she has posted something extremely unfavorable, and it went viral. And she is dealing with a heck of a lot of backlash, and she has no memory of like how this even wound up getting posted on her account the night before. So to add sort of complications to a really bad day that she's having, she is calling her assistant and no answer, not responding to texts, not responding to phone calls. So it comes to find out when the police come a knocking that her assistant AC has gone missing, and Alex and her husband were the last people to see her at all. So we get police investigation, not quite sure what's going on here, not quite sure like who's up to what. I feel like it's a very trust no one type of a book, and I really enjoyed it. I loved the winks and the nods to real life. I loved the dark and messed upness. I really feel like Kimberly Bell knows how to tell a story. I'm a very big fan of hers, and I was hooked. I compulsively listened to this book. Again, the audiobook narration is tremendous, and I just had such great fun with it. I really feel like it's smart, it's timely. There's like so much going on in it, and again, I feel like you're best served going into it dark, so I don't want to reveal all the things, but I really thought it was well done. I did not know what was going on. I had suspicions. I feel like this has like been a thing for me. I had suspicions and I was totally wrong, but I'm totally fine with that. And I just had such great fun listening to it. So I highly recommend it. I really think she just did a spectacular job, and huge fan, huge, huge fan. The next book I have is The Sea of Lost Girls by Carol Goodman. So I actually did the audiobook of this, and this was read by Natalie Naudis. And I had this on my Dark Academia TBR, which you guys know, if you follow me, I made a massive Dark Academia TBR, and I completely like jinxed myself and read nothing on it. But I was craving something, and I wound up picking this book up. So this is my first book by Carol Goodman, and I would say that this was not quite what I expected it to be. So I expected more Dark Academia mystery thriller to this. So the setup of this one is we have a woman named Tess. She's the wife of a respected department head at an elite boarding school where she also teaches. So they are up in Maine. And when the book opens, she has a 17-year-old son named Rudy from her first marriage. And Rudy calls her at like 3 in the morning, asks her to like come pick him up, which of course she does. Okay, my battery died because of course it did. So Tess winds up picking up Rudy. He's cold, he's wet, he's shivering. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. And the next day, Tess finds out that Rudy's girlfriend Lila was found dead on the beach, not far from where she picked him up. So I thought we were going to have a very like Defending Jacob vibe to this book by William Landay, which I loved. And there was an element of that because we do have that vibe of a parent who will go to any lengths to protect her child and has to really question who her child is. Is her child capable of murder? What really happened to Lila? What happened that night? And she has to sort of face questions she doesn't want to be asking. And I really liked that element of the book. But where I really struggled a bit is the book went sort of deep into the past, which I'm fine with the past and present timeline. I'm fine with the past and present mystery. But I felt a little bit bogged down in that. There were a couple sort of hard to believe moments, which I always feel like it sounds like a little bit funny when you're talking about a book, but a little, like I can suspend disbelief with the best people, but there was a little suspension of disbelief here where I was like, And this book really leaned into kind of like some folklore. There is a play that they are doing at school, which it really leaned into. It kind of tied in. I felt like it was almost trying to do too many things, and it's not a big book. So I felt a little bit lost with what was going on, and I feel like maybe I didn't understand the folklore element of this, or I couldn't follow it. And they're doing the crucible, so like that was an element. And we've got like message boards and like different people investigating different mysteries, and there's definitely some darkness about the school and the girls and elements of, I don't know if that's a spoiler. Okay, so like I'm not sure. I kind of feel like some of this is spoilery, but Haywood is the name of the academy. So it's, as Tess is sort of looking into what could have happened to Lila and her son and trying to protect her son, she starts to learn more about the dark history of Haywood. She was a student there at one time, and it's just sort of like skeletons in the closet and secrets and lies. And there's just a lot of different things going on in this book. And I feel like if it had stuck more to the mystery in the present, there's lots of suspects, there's lots of different characters, I feel like it maybe would have worked better. And I don't know, like I feel like it's not what I expected the book to be, so I was disappointed in that my expectation wasn't met in that way. But I really feel like I just got a little bit lost with the folklore element of it. So I'm always here for a prep school book. I'm always here for a dark academia book. I enjoyed the overall concept of it, but I didn't like the different paths that we went down. So not a total hit for me, but I will definitely be reading more Carol Goodman. I enjoyed the writing style of the book, and I'll be curious to read some more from her. So I do actually have, I want to say, a few of her books, because of course I do. I have The Widow's House and I have The Other Mother. And I think The Widow's House actually takes place like in New York on the Hudson River, which I always just get excited when things take place like in my universe. So anyway, we'll see. So I'll be reading more from her for sure. I got my finger caught in the book. It's been a day, you guys. Anyway, that's this one. And then the last book I read for the year and the last book I have to talk about today is Pretty Little Wife by Darby Kane. So I talked about her new book, which comes out in January, came out in December, which I was really excited about. And then I was like, you know what? I have 2 Darby Kanes on my shelf. How about I read one of them and give her some love? So this was the last book I read this year. I wound up doing the audiobook of this, and I did like a combination of reading and audio, more audio than reading, and I really enjoyed it. So this was another one where I didn't know too much about it going in, and I'm really glad I went in blind. So the back of this says, "Shouldn't a dead husband stay dead?" I just love it. I think that was enough for me. So in this book, we are following Lila Ridgefield, and they live kind of outside of Ithaca, perfect small town, but not everything is as it seems, including Lila. So her husband, Aaron, is a high school teacher, and he winds up going missing. So we get an element of police investigation, and we kind of get a twist on Gone Girl in that the husband is missing, and of course all eyes are on the wife. And we get that influx of media, There is a true crime podcast in this book, which I was not aware of. Nowhere on the back do we talk about the true crime podcast. So when that started, I was like so pleasantly surprised that that happened. And they are covering sort of some real life missing people cases, missing persons cases as they are unfolding, and they wind up picking up the case for Lila's husband. So the thing that grabbed me about this book when I had originally heard about it, on the back of the book, is it says, the small town is in an uproar. Everyone is worried about the whereabouts of the beloved high school teacher. Everyone except his wife. Lila is more confused because she was the last person to see her husband's body, and now it's gone. So who do you trust? Lots of characters in this one, lots of sketchball people in this one, which of course makes it great. And I really, really had a great time with this. So I appreciate the dark places that Darby Kane went to and took me to. I just enjoyed the twist. I liked the reveals. I felt like this was both page-turny, but it's not like, we don't have like chase scenes action-y, but it's very much one of those books where I was invested out of the gate. I needed to know what was going to happen next. I wanted to be in the world of Ginny, our detective, and Lila, our main character. I guess they're kind of like dual main characters. And I don't know if Ginny pops up in any future books. I feel like this was her first book as Darby Kane. That's a pseudonym. She writes other books as a romance suspense author. But I really enjoyed Ginny as a character and would love to see more of her. But I really feel like there was a great element of sort of like mystery and deception and secrets and lies. And this was another book where I feel like she did a really good job of asking and answering questions and then asking new ones. So it kept me turning the pages, and I did a really bang up job cleaning so I could keep listening to this. I went for a nice long walk so I could continue listening to this. I found excuses to do things that would allow me to listen to the book because I just wanted to know more. And again, I did read part of it as well. So super compulsive. I read this over the course of the last 2 days of the year. It's that kind of a book, and I'm excited to read more Darby Kane. So I do have her second book. Can I just say the number of times when I edit a video that I like notice myself bending, like I'm gonna like magically find the book behind me? I have her second book, and then her third book just came out, The Last Invitation, I think that one's called, which sounds like a delicious revenge story. So all that to say, I am sold on Darby Kane, you guys, and I'm excited to read more of her. So what a great way to end the year. I ended it on a high. I could have started another book on the 31st, but I decided to just quit while I was ahead. And just what a great way to end the year. So that's going to do it for what I read in December. 10 books to finish out the year, 119 books overall. I still can't even get over it. I don't even know how that happened, but I had a really great reading year. A couple bumps along the way, as expected, but yeah, it was a really good month. And I'm really enjoying this sort of seasonal reading, but still keeping it moody. So yay, yay for all the things. But let me know what you guys read in December, how you ended your year. Did you read anything seasonal? Did you read any of these? I will let you know. And another check-in, I'm gonna watch that movie Ready or Not, which I feel like I didn't come back to. So Ready or Not is a movie by the guys who did Scream 2022. Wow, you can tell that I'm so ill-prepared today. But it is about a woman who marries into this super rich family, and then it's like they play a completely twisted game, and I just know that there's like blood and terrible things seem to be happening, and Madeline Stowe and Adam Brody are in it, and I'm just totally intrigued. I'm totally intrigued. So Radio Silence is the name of the group, or the directors, and yeah, it doesn't matter. So anyway, it has vibes of the family game to it, and I'm gonna watch it just out of curiosity. So when I do that, I'll let you guys know. And it's definitely just sort of like a messed up family horror wedding movie, it looks like. So until then, until the next video, until we meet again, if you actually hopefully will still want to come back and put up with the crazy. I hope you guys are doing great. I hope everyone is having a great start to their 2023. Thanks for being here today. If you made it this far, you are amazing, and I'm super grateful. And I will see you guys in another video really soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.